the shadow behind his smile, when silence became Yu Menglong's only escape. He was the man who smiled even when his heart was breaking, the one whose laughter echoed through studios, whose voice carried millions of hearts into moments of love and hope. To the world, Yu Menglong was the symbol of calm perfection, the actor who could charm without effort, the singer whose every note felt like a gentle confession. Yet behind every fan meet, every flawless performance, and every glowing interview, there was a darkness growing quietly, a battle no camera could ever capture. The world adored his light, but no one saw how much it hurt to keep it shining. Yu Menglong's story is not just about fame. It's about the heavy price of pretending to be fine. Behind that boyish grin and the carefully rehearsed gestures was a man slowly disappearing into silence. He lived surrounded by noise, lights, and love, yet his nights were filled with a kind of loneliness that fame could never heal. Those close to him now say that the signs were there, in the way his eyes grew distant between takes, the way he'd stare at the floor before going on stage, whispering something no one could hear. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was a quiet surrender. For years, Yu Menglong had been everyone's ideal, the picture-perfect star with a spotless image. But perfection is a cage, and he had been locked inside it for too long. His schedule was relentless, his emotions strictly managed, his words filtered through layers of public relations. Every photo had to be perfect. Every post had to inspire warmth. Every tear had to be hidden. He was adored for his calmness, yet that calm had come at the cost of his voice. He couldn't say what he really felt anymore, said one close friend. He could act sadness on screen, but wasn't allowed to show it in real life. Depression doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes dressed as politeness, disguised as professionalism. For you, it came in the form of exhaustion, not the kind that sleep could fix, but the kind that came from pretending to be happy every single day. The entertainment industry has a way of romanticizing pain, packaging it as passion or commitment, but his was different. His was quiet, buried beneath layers of image control and emotional manipulation. There were people who benefited from his silence, managers who saw his obedience as loyalty, networks that saw his pain as professionalism. He began to fade slowly, piece by piece. The smiles became rarer, the laughter shorter, the spark in his performances slightly dimmer. He still did everything he was told, still thanked everyone on set, still smiled for the cameras. But those who really looked could see it, the heaviness behind his eyes, the way his shoulders seemed to carry invisible weight. He once said in an interview, "I think the hardest thing in this industry is to keep being sincere when everything around you feels artificial." At the time, people took it as poetic humility. Now, it feels like a cry for help hidden in plain sight. Friends recall how he began withdrawing, not dramatically, but subtly. He stopped replying to messages as often, canceled dinners at the last minute, and when he did show up, he seemed distracted, almost distant. One friend said he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes anymore. It was like watching someone act, even when the cameras weren't rolling. In his final months, he was quieter than ever. There were no outbursts, no public meltdowns, just silence, the kind that speaks louder than any words. It's hard to imagine that someone so beloved could feel so alone. But fame can be a very isolating thing. Every person around you wants something, a picture, a favor, a headline. Few truly listen. Fewer still care to ask, "Are you okay?" For Yu Menglong, his world had become a performance without an intermission. He was surrounded by applause, yet he could hear nothing but the echo of his own thoughts. Depression had turned his mind into a room with no doors. There were whispers of emotional abuse too, subtle, unseen, the kind that chips away at someone's confidence over time. He was told to be grateful, to smile more, to never complain because millions would die to be where you are. When he cried in private, he was reminded of contracts, endorsements, fans, and expectations. "You're lucky," they said. "You have everything." But sometimes everything can feel like nothing when your heart is breaking. He tried to channel his emotions into music. Those who listened closely to his later songs noticed a shift, a haunting melancholy in his voice, lyrics that spoke of loss, fear, and invisible pain. His melodies were softer, almost fragile, as if he was trying to say something the world wasn't ready to hear. Music was his diary, one of his producers revealed. Every song was a letter he couldn't send. Some say his unreleased tracks are even darker, full of verses that feel like confessions written in the dark. And yet he kept showing up. He kept smiling. He kept performing for a world that only wanted the beautiful version of him, not the broken one. It's easy to forget that celebrities are human, that their hearts bruise just like anyone else's. For you, every fan's cheer was both a comfort and a curse, a reminder of how loved he was and how impossible it was to ever show weakness. He became a mirror reflecting everyone's happiness but his own. The night before he left, those closest to him noticed something strange. He was calm, too calm. He thanked people more often than usual, hugged a few friends a little longer. He even sent a few late-night messages, just simple things like take care or don't overwork yourself. No one thought much of it then, but in hindsight it feels like he was saying goodbye. That was you, always gentle, even when he was breaking inside. When the news broke, the world fell silent. Fans flooded his social media with disbelief, old clips, and broken hearts. Everyone asked the same question. How could someone who seemed so full of light fall into such darkness? But those who knew him said it wasn't sudden. It was years of quiet suffering, of being told to suppress, to endure, to be strong. His silence had been both his protection and his prison. There's a haunting irony in the way he left, quietly without a word, just like how he lived in his final years. Silence had become his only escape. Perhaps he felt that words had lost their meaning, that nobody was really listening anymore. Maybe he thought the only way to make people hear his pain was through absence, through the void he left behind. His death became a mirror to the industry, forcing everyone to look at the glossy world they built and the fragile souls they destroyed in the process. The truth is, behind every shining celebrity is a person, one who bleeds, who fears, who gets tired. Menglong's story is a reminder that sometimes the brightest smiles hide the darkest battles. In the days that followed, fans gathered at his last filming location, leaving flowers, letters, and candles. They sang his songs softly under the night sky, tears mixing with rain. Some messages read, "We're sorry we didn't see it," and "You didn't have to smile for us all the time." It was as if the world had finally realized that their idol was more than just a performer. He was a person who needed love without conditions, understanding without judgment. The image of Menglong's final months lingers in the memory of those who saw him. The same gentle smile, the same calm tone, the same soft laughter that had once made millions fall in love. But beneath it all, something had changed. He wasn't just tired, he was disappearing in slow motion. His silence had become louder than words, and those who were close enough could feel it, even if they couldn't name it. It was the kind of quiet that chilled a room, a stillness that felt almost rehearsed, as if he'd already made peace with the end. At photo shoots, assistants whispered about how he would stare at the floor between flashes, lost in thought, before snapping back into his perfect pose. He would go completely blank for a few seconds, one photographer said. Then he'd look up, smile, and it was like nothing happened. But there was a sadness in that smile that stayed with you. It was the same smile fans adored, the same one that lit up screens, now hollow, fragile, almost pleading. In one of his last Variety appearances, there was a brief moment that fans would later replay endlessly. During a game segment, he was asked to describe his happiest memory. He laughed softly, paused, and said, "Maybe it hasn't happened yet." The audience laughed, thinking it was a playful answer, but his eyes told another story. That single second, that fragile, fleeting moment, would become one of the most replayed clips after his death, haunting fans who finally saw the truth in hindsight. Those who worked closest to him said that you had become increasingly quiet off camera. He used to joke around during rehearsals, bring snacks for the staff, stay late just to thank the crew. But that warmth had begun to fade. He still showed up, still did everything expected of him. But there was a wall now, invisible, yet impossible to miss. His messages became shorter. "I'm fine. Just tired. Don't worry." He said those words so often they stopped meaning anything. The truth was that he wasn't fine. The pressure had begun crushing him from the inside out. He was constantly reminded of his duty to maintain an image, to always be smiling, grateful, and composed. But being perfect had become its own kind of prison. Behind the stage lights, he struggled with the emotional toll of being owned by a system that saw him not as a person, but as a product. Every emotion was measured, every response rehearsed. He couldn't even be sad without someone trying to fix it for the cameras. One stylist confessed. It's like he wasn't allowed to be human anymore. He began losing weight, though he would laugh it off when people asked. He said it was just work stress, that he wasn't eating much between projects. But there was something else, a quiet refusal to care for himself. He started skipping meals, sleeping less, keeping to himself. Nights found him sitting by his piano, playing soft melodies that no one ever heard. His neighbors said they'd sometimes hear him singing faintly past midnight, slow, sorrowful tunes that carried through the walls like confessions to no one. In the weeks leading up to his final days, he was filming a project that required him to portray a broken man hiding his emotions. He didn't need direction, the director said later. He just knew how to look hurt. It wasn't acting. It was real. When the camera stopped rolling, he would stay seated, staring into space long after the crew packed up. He once told a co-star quietly, "It's easier to cry for a script than for myself." And yet he tried, he really did, to find light in small things. He'd bring coffee for the crew, compliment a fan's handmade gift, or joke about how clumsy he was. He was fighting, even if nobody noticed it was a battle. But fighting alone is exhausting, especially when everyone around you only wants the version of you that makes them happy. Fame had turned his pain into an inconvenience. Depression doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like politeness, like showing up on time, like saying, "I'm okay," because you don't want to make others uncomfortable. That was Menglong, the perfect gentleman, even when his heart was falling apart. He didn't want pity, he wanted peace. But peace was something fame refused to give him. In the last week of his life, he had a small dinner with a few old friends, people who had known him before the fame, before the flashing lights. They laughed about the past, about how shy he used to be, about his old songs that never made it to release. He laughed too, genuinely, for a brief moment, but there was a calmness to him that no one could explain. He was smiling, but it felt like a goodbye, one of them said later, like he had finally stopped fighting. That night, he posted a simple message online. "Sometimes silence says more than words ever could." Fans thought it was poetic. They flooded the comments with hearts, quotes, and encouragement. Nobody realized it was his final message. It was the last time the world would hear from him, a sentence so simple, yet so heavy with meaning. When the news broke the next morning, the internet froze. Hashtags flooded timelines. Videos of his laughter played on loop, while countless fans wrote about how much his kindness had meant to them. They cried for the man they adored, but never truly knew. How could someone so bright choose to leave the world? They asked. But the truth was he hadn't chosen death, he had chosen silence. Silence from pain. Silence from pressure. Silence from the endless expectation to smile when he wanted to scream. In the days that followed, candlelight vigils filled streets across Asia. Fans brought letters, photos, and flowers. Many wrote messages that read, "We see you now." Some shared their own battles with depression, admitting that Yu's story made them realize how easily pain can hide behind happiness. The industry, too, began to feel the shockwave. Other artists started speaking about their struggles, their exhaustion, their fear of showing weakness. It was as if his death opened a wound everyone had been pretending didn't exist. And maybe that was his final gift, forcing the world to finally listen to what silence sounds like. In the years to come, Menglong's legacy will not just be his work, his voice, or his beauty. It will be the truth he left behind. That fame does not protect you from pain, that smiles can hide storms, and that even the brightest souls can be swallowed by the darkness they try so hard to conceal. His silence was not weakness. It was a message, one that continues to echo through every fan who plays his songs at night, through every person who has ever smiled through suffering. He may be gone, but his story remains a haunting reminder that sometimes the kindest souls carry the heaviest burdens. The applause fades, the lights go out, but the shadow behind his smile, that quiet, aching truth, will never be forgotten. Menglong didn't die in vain. His silence became a mirror, reflecting the hidden pain so many carry but never speak of. And in that reflection, the world finally saw him, not as a perfect star, but as a fragile, beautiful human who simply wanted to be heard.